Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Doctor Who Review, episode number 95. Oh boy, this one. This is talk about Nightmare Named Eden, the penultimate story released for season 17. And there's a reason for that, basically, because one of my previous stories, Shada, was supposed to be the actual finale, but due to I think it was a writer's strike in the UK at the time, that the very next story, Horns Naimon, ended up being the last story. And it is the only finale for Tom Baker that was 4 parts, not the usual 6. Yep. This one particularly is a very infamous one, from what I can tell, because two of the top brass basically written Doctor Who at the time. One who happened to be the writer of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Douglas Adams, he quit by the end of this. The director quit because he was apparently not interested in how stuff works. And get this, the guy who previously worked on another Doctor Who story, he worked on the Time Warrior. Which I'm like, wait a minute, you mean the debut of the Centaurans and Sarah Jane Smith? And it was also the episode that started off John Pertwee's last season show. Apparently the guy was not interested at all. Now at this point, it had been about 5 years since basically Tom Baker regenerated at this point in time. And he apparently just didn't care. And also the best way to describe this story here, it's what Star Trek would call a bottle episode, because it's all set on one ship. It is not going to their planet, though kind of it does, thanks to a projection. So we start off with this cruise ship called the Queen. Actually called the Empress, I think it's called. People wear these weird suits and goggles for reasons not thoroughly explained here. It's just goofy, futuristic sci-fi. Apparently the story is set in 2116. Which, I kid you not. Oh my gosh. Thinking about this now. That is... It's almost 90 years from now. That's how far in the future this is set. This time when this came out in 1979. So, also, the costume designer quit because she had a dispute with Leela Ward. She would leave the following season of the show. Actually, this was season 6, I think it was. Yeah, this was the 6th season, because the very next season of the show would be Tom Baker's last. And if I remember correctly, I think just when John Nathan Turner took over as a producer for the show, and he remained a producer for pretty much the entirety of the 1980s run. He basically was there from that point forward up until, well, they decided to end the series. And we'll get back to that another time. So we had the two ships sort of collide with each other for some reason. And the first look looks okay from my perspective. Looks fine. They kind of collide with each other, and normally you have like a collision like this. Usually there's some like damage, but it's more of like, it's similar to what a Doctor Who dematerializes. Yeah, I thought that was kind of weird. Oh, by the way, this story does not feature the TARDIS interior in the story. Not really. I do not remember ever appearing the whole... I know TARDIS has appeared several times in the story. I don't think the interior is ever seen in the show. Not really. It's like, I'm guessing that the console room was not available for this story. Also, I think the story has similarities with, I would say, probably with Revenge of the Cybermen and Ark in Space, because it's set in this one location. So on a ship this time. and it's not another planet per se. And apparently, when he had before the collision, the navigator was acting weird, and the captain was like, "What are you doing, dude?" Just basically, he's like, "It's fine." Yeah, we find out the navigator was actually high on a drug that was, fine little research, apparently first shown in Doctor Who in, believe it or not, Patrick Troughton's second to last story. A story known as The Space Pirates. Yeah, they actually reference that here. I am quite surprised if there's anything related to Tom Baker here. I know nowadays basically referencing previous stories is a given, but they mentioned like devastating planets. Like, wow, okay. I mentioned a little later about this story. So, they got this mysterious person who shoots the Doctor. We later find out he's actually a good guy. Oh, and here's something though. The guy who directed this thing, despite quitting halfway through the story, he apparently is credited as director for all 4 episodes. There's also this, like, there's like a zoologist who studies, these are projections. And it turns out they're actually real because at the end of part 1, when I find out how to get the power converters, they find a monster in the bulkhead. You're like, what the heck is this? Yeah, this is not explained to part 4 what the heck is going on with this. Like, how the heck did a monster get inside the bulkhead? Yeah, it's thanks to the zoologist's projector. His projector, which apparently makes stuff real. They kind of explained that there was one person who apparently died. And then I said, he may be involved in drugs. Also, Rhonda sees the guy, and apparently the guy is real. And it turns out he's actually survived. And apparently he's been hiding the projection all along. And apparently it's been spreading across the ship. And throughout the story, the Doctor is trying to separate the ships. And then eventually he does, but by parts where he does do it. The captain gets a toxin. He's arrested for being incompetent. My guess is the reason why they did that is because maybe the actor wanted to lead the story. I don't even know about that. So, he probably played being drunk in order to be fired from the show. Because once he's gone, he's never seen it again. At one point, the guy in charge took off his hat. I'm like, wait, where is your hat to? He's supposed to be a police officer. And, like, after running around, I mean, like, watch this. It's like watching Ark in Space again. And also, Revenge of the Cybermen. I did enjoy the action when they had the monsters show up again. And it's revealed when they get electrocuted. Get this. They apparently were holding the drugs that they were looking for all along. At one point, Doctor was playing for it. Turns out the guy was basically looking for a quick emotion anyways. Oh, by the way, when they find the guy, it turns out he's actually agent of the Space Corps. I'm like, that's interesting. Those of you curious, they actually the Space Corps previously show up in the Space Pirates, which was the second to last story of Patrick Troughton's run, which aired 10 years prior to the story. You're like, really? Yeah, really. 10 years. Yeah, it's almost like the best way to describe this story. I would call it sort of a spiritual sequel a little bit to, or at least have a mild follow-up to Space Pirates a little bit. Except you have the Doctor involved in the story. Compared to Space Pirates where he's like sleeping the whole time. So, But Navigator is killed after being taken after being attacked by the creatures. Eventually, a few of them are killed. Doctor is being away from rest, and thanks to cooperation with the Space Corps, well, he's able to basically find a way to defeat the creatures by putting back the protection. Oh yeah, and it turns out the people who actually were smuggling the drug. Oh yeah, but also before we talk about the revealed, at one point the creatures attacked the passengers. Except they show like about 2 people. At one point, the doctor, before you find the actual guy, he was chasing throughout the pasture where I thought it was blocked. I think he must have been part of the ship. By the way, when I see these guys wearing the goggles, reminds me a lot of basically Tim Burton's Willy Wonka and Chocolate Factory. Reminds me so much of that. I found that kind of weird, but that's the goggles remind me of. So they feel in part 4 that the captain of their ship and the zoologists are in fact the drug smugglers. And they think, oh, they're going to get away. Nope, they record the projector to basically was supposed to take the creatures, but actually took them instead. And they turn on the projector, and there they are. Doctor, like, you want drug smugglers? Block them out. And the rest on the spot. And of course, he was like, I did. Like, he's like, go away. And the doctor leaves. Not sure what's going to happen to the ship itself. They only say they just doctor them on and they'll talk about a zoo thing, which they follow up with that a little bit. I was like, somebody that belongs in the middle of the zoo. And of course, apparently they can't know who he's talking about. Probably a doctor, maybe somebody else. But I do kind of like this story in a way. But it seems like the behind the scenes, this was a complete disaster behind the scenes. Like, making this story was like a nightmare for the entire crew of the show. Oh, and get this. I didn't know this. Apparently the director of Inferno had to leave halfway through the story because man suffered a heart attack. So they replaced with one of the producers to the rest of the story. That could explain change direction story. But that was a really good story. This, I like it. I don't think it's terrible. The only effect that doesn't age too well is the imitation of the giant ships. But the creatures look fantastic. The ship looks pretty good. I don't find any major faults per se. It just probably the weakness of the story is a little bit on the writing side. But yeah, I give this one a ranking of a 8.5 out of 10. Next Horns Naimon. That's the next story of the cover. And I thought I was going to stop at that one, but I figured though, turns out it's actually been 2 weeks since I went and break my Male Heroes. I'm gonna continue this for a little bit more. I'm gonna cover not only the Horns Town, but also the last 2 stories for the very next season's show, so I can cap off Romano's run for the show. But yeah, let's pick up the review. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications, and do not hit the dislike button. Next up we have is Basic Comic Corner. Okay, next video. Bye.